An audience is a group of people who witness the same thing. We can all witness the Olympics or the World Cup. But a community is the group of people who connect and build with one another based on their common interest, dreams, goals, curiosities, etc. We will engage in dialogue, interact on social media, and even on occasion wear clothes that represent our particular communities. These are the words of Derek. He is a member on one of my communities, and he, I believe, summarizes perfectly what the difference is between an audience and a community. Here's my question to you. You may or may not have some followers on social media, but are they members? Are they a part of your community, or is it just an audience? You're listening to the Street Cred podcast, the show laser focused on helping streetwear brands turn their audience into a community. And this episode is part 2 of a 5-part series all about how to turn your audience into a community. I'm laying out the step-by-step process for exactly how to do it. Last episode, we spoke about the glue to any community is a big idea, because you cannot create a community around a product. However, you can around a big idea that's represented by that product. And so you find your big idea and well, you've got the beginning of a community. Now we're talking about how do you find your founding members, right? And this is relevant for anyone. If you've already got some followers, they might not be members, as I mentioned before. So you need to find your founding members. Or maybe you just haven't even started on social media yet, in which case you also need to find your founding members. So this is about attracting the people that will become a part of your community. And I always like the quote, how you get them is how you keep them. How is this relevant? If you attract the people by your product, their expectation will be set by your product. And that means when that product is no longer available, or their satisfaction or their need is fulfilled, like they bought that product and it's, and that's it, then they come and go. And that's the problem with attracting your audience by a product, is that your products come and go, and if you do so will your audience come and go. And so that's not really much of a community, right? That is more of an audience. And so finding members is about attracting them by something that stays, that withstands the test of time, that is always true for your brand, no matter if you're dropping, if you're not, if it's summer, autumn, winter, spring. And the thing that's always true to your company is not your product, but it is your brand. Because as I said before, your products come and go, but your brand is what stays. So how do you get customers that stay then and then eventually become members? Well, if you attract them according to the brand, if you sell them on your brand before you sell them on your product, then they're more likely to stay for longer amounts of time and therefore become one of your founding members. And so that brings us to the 2 main ways, I believe, that you can attract an audience that will eventually become the founding members of your community. And the first way is by creating value content on social media, right? I'm going to take this from the perspective of Instagram, but this can apply to TikTok, YouTube, wherever you like. Okay, so what is value content? I like to break content into 2 main parts. There's value content and promotional content. Promotional content is your product-focused stuff. Anything that is in any way about your product as the subject. Value content, on the other hand, is about your brand. It's about the ideology, the ethos, the lifestyle behind what you're doing. It's Nike's posts that are about sharing motivational quotes about sporting legends. It's Patagonia's mini documentaries about environmental activists. These are examples of value content. And then you could break it down even further than that. Entertainment, education, and inspiration. So creating value content and drawing people in according to your brand is all about asking yourself the question, how do I entertain, educate, and inspire and bring value to my audience through those three mediums about my brand ideology, about the big idea behind it all. And that is exactly how you find your founding members. How you get them is how you keep them. So if you get them in according to your brand, they'll buy into the brand first and second into the product. And so this is the first way of attracting your founding members. And the second way is something I like to call crowdsourced content, right? And there is 2 main types of crowdsourced content. The first one is influencers, And the second one is content creators. And so the way I like to break it down is that influencers are people that represent the idea, and content creators are the people that create the content that represents the idea, right? So influencers are the people, the content creators are just the content. And so how does this relate? Like, what do I mean by the idea? Again, this is the idea that is your brand, the conceptual ethos idea, the big idea behind it all, right? And so I'm going to use the example of Nike for this, because I mean, I think everyone knows Nike and they're a pretty solid example. So if they're doing crowdsourced content, some of the influencer content that they'll be doing is with, for example, Michael Jordan. If they simply have a photo of him playing basketball, he might be wearing the shoes, but that's not really relevant to it. The fact that his face is on it, he represents particular ideas that the Nike brand also does, and therefore he is an example of attracting an audience, like, or Nike using the audience of Michael Jordan to leverage their own, right? So that's an example of the influencer crowdsourced content. And again, this is also not much to do with the product as it is to do with the brand and the big idea behind it all. Because you'll notice the reason why Nike would pick someone like Michael Jordan is not willy-nilly. It's not just because he's a great fashion influencer, because really, I mean, he's not. The reason is because Michael Jordan represents the same big idea as the brand Nike. He embodies the brand, because their brand is about winning. It's about success. It's about overcoming sporting challenges, victory, right? Nike is the goddess of victory. Literally, that's what it means. And so if that's what Nike represents, they recognize the person that also represents that idea and is already known for representing that idea. You put these two together and it crushes, because you have the audience of one that merges with the audience of another. The audience of Nike merges with the audience of Michael Jordan, and now what you've done is you've expanded and you have your founding members of your community, or what will become it. So that's the influencer side. The other side of crowdsourced content, and by the way, just to define some key terms, crowdsourced content is anything that you don't make or you make in collaboration with someone who's in your audience or a part of the community, right? So that's influencer. And then the second type is content creators. So these are people that might not necessarily be influencers. Maybe they don't have a massive following. However, they create content that is really on brand to the same or similar ideas that you're representing. These are the people that are entertaining, educating, and inspiring already through their audience. And you might want to take some of their content, or not take it, but ask permission to use it or repost it and give them a tag. And in this way, you are creating what is essentially going to be a theme page for your community that just happens to sell clothing. I said this in the end of the last episode. Become a community that just happens to sell clothes. That's exactly what you're doing on your Instagram page or your social media page, is that you are creating a theme page for this idea, and then also you just happen to put your brand on a t-shirt or whatever it is, or you create these amazing design products. Like, it doesn't matter. And they represent the idea. And so part of the way you can do that is by utilizing these content creators, people that are already creating content in your idea or your ideology niche, and take that and use it, right? And so that's the content that represents the idea. And so if I could give you anything walking away from this episode, I have 2 actionable steps. First of all, on creating your own value content, list out all the content ideas and create it all. Like, list out a bunch of content ideas under entertainment, education, and inspiration within your niche, and just create it all, right? So if for example, if you're a brand that's about that's for alpine skiers and snowboarders, then if I were you, I'd be listing out entertainment content, memes about snowboarding, education. I'd be doing like snowboarding tips, information like current news about snowboarding, inspiration. I'd be posting like quotes and reshareable things. Or another one for entertainment, I'd be posting, the top 5 most dangerous slopes in the world. Like, this is the kind of content I'd be creating. List it all out and just create it all and see what works. And then for the crowdsourced content, if you want to go down that route, right? Follow theme pages and content creators within your niche, and save posts that you like. And so later on down the track, or maybe now, you might want to send them a message and ask permission to use it or repost it. And this is, you might want to do a little bit of both. You might want to both create your own content, your value content, and then also do some crowdsourced content, right? Do a bit of both, increase your output. It's always better. So just to recap everything up until this point, you need, in order to plan, planning your community is defining what your community is about. And you can't cultivate a community around a product. You can, however, around an idea. So define that idea very specifically, and that is your niche. Then, to get your founding members, what you want to do is you want to take that idea and turn it into content to gather the people that idea resonates with. So you start posting value content about that idea, right? Entertain, educate, and inspire. And then also, if you want to take a bit of that work off your shoulders, crowdsource it out to influencers and other content creators that are already creating that kind of content. All right, well, thanks for listening to this episode of Street Cred. I hope this was valuable. I'm creating a more in-depth series that's going to release out on YouTube, and it is going to be an in-depth course about all these topics that I'm sharing, how to turn your audience into a community. And that is releasing on September 2nd, right? September 2nd is going to be a 5-part video series. And look, you're not going to want to miss it because it's going to be the greatest thing that I've ever released. And I believe that it reveals some of the big changes coming to the streetwear industry. It's all moving to community focus, and any brand that doesn't jump on is going to be left behind. Now is the opportunity to be ahead of the curve. So I encourage you, start cultivating your community today. Do not wait. Do not sleep on it, because I promise you in a few years' time, everyone is going to be talking about this, if they're not already. My goodness. If this was valuable, you can trust that I create a lot of other valuable things too. I have a community for brand owners, people just like you who are motivated, who are doing the stuff, they're doing the things, and it's going to help motivate you too. If you want to join it, it's 100% free. There's a link below. It's a school community. It's called Streetwear 365. You can network with others, and there's even a free course on there about how to market your streetwear brand. Anyway, that's all from me. Thanks for listening. I'm Elijah Delport. This is the Street Cred Podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow for another episode.